Hi, I'm Stephen Bryce. I acted as the producer, editor, composer as Sonic Snafu, and co-cinematographer under the alias Nathaniel McLean on Colin Baxter's first film as a director called From the Eyes of the Wronged. Uh, Colin's not very fond of doing these commentary tracks, so he is not participating on this today. For those reasons, I will be concentrating mainly on the technical aspects of making this movie. The one thing I can confirm is a story inspiration, as opposed to anything else. Sorry, is that sometime before Colin got the idea to make this movie, he got into a car accident, and he was physically fine, but it obviously did affect him mentally. So to a certain extent, he was working out some minor anxiety issues with that, but it definitely intertwined with his already existing fascination with body horror, things like David Cronenberg movies and the like, and that very likely gelled into this notion that even if even if you don't have a transplant necessarily, anytime that you are injured or ill badly enough to need surgery of any kind, your body is altered forever. That can definitely get to you, even if this movie takes an obviously very fantastic spin on that. Now, this is Eric Johnson, who is another multi talented guy because he's obviously here as a performer, but he also provides some makeup for the movie. And he has since gone on to be a director and content creator himself. He has a very interesting short horror movie out called Infection, and has done some YouTube series over the years. And interestingly, this is a very different take on how he normally does things because this is obviously a very serious role, but he's also very known for comedy. That is very much his wheelhouse. Now that isn't to say that sometimes the two didn't mesh on the making of this movie. There are definitely a lot of outtakes that are a result of him sometimes failing to resist the urge to clown around during the take, but it was a joy. And if anything, Eric really needed to break the tension. Because something I should disclose here: this was the first and probably one of the few times ever that I was not directing anything with Mad Twins films. My job on this was attempting to help Colin get his vision on camera in the most efficient way possible, and sometimes it seemed like Colin had other ideas. We'll put it that way. Just because Colin is a dedicated filmmaker and craftsman himself, he's one of those who likes to finesse over everything until he's convinced he's got everything ironed out, and that is a valid way of doing things. But it is sometimes a little. It's a culture clash when you're used to getting a movie done in as lean and mean a way as possible, which is basically my approach. So I freely admit to, I hate to say it, being one of those jerk producers who tried to steamroll the director on more than one occasion. I probably gave Colin a couple of anxiety attacks. Not that I'm proud to admit that. So Eric was definitely a more lighthearted influence that was needed very, very much, and I appreciate that to this day, which is like 16 years later as of this recording. This was our first scene that we shot, and a very peculiar thing about it that sort of connects to what I said before is that as this was filmed, Colin wanted this whole thing with preparing the sandwich to go on for at least a solid minute longer than we've seen in the movie. And other than giving Eric some kind of business acting, we're not exactly, to this day, I'm not entirely certain why Colin wanted to do that, but that was one of those things. One of the few things that Colin and I argued about in the post production stage was the inclusion or removal of whatever we shot. I don't know if this is a first time filmmaker thing or what, because I know in my own experience, I tried to include everything uh, that I filmed when I started out as a director. The reality when you shoot any movie is that you're almost never going to include everything that you film. It's just one of those things because not everything works as well in the edit as it seems to when you write and shoot it. So Colin just wanted to include everything to probably just to avoid having wasted time, or because he felt something was too important to lose. Everybody has a reason why they're attached to something. And in fairness, if we had covered the sandwich prep from more than one camera angle, maybe we could have made that work. But it was just the one unbroken shot, and that was going to play like death. So it took a little. I mean, part of my own learning process on this, in my abysmal attempt at being a producer to other directors, was that I learned that Colin responded to these sort of notes a lot better if I showed him rather than just berated him. Not surprisingly, so he became more receptive to this when, in a non-destructive way, I showed him a version of the movie with these things taken out, under the promise that if he was still adamant that we keep them in, I will do so. Thankfully, that seemed to work better. And as we said, I was really worried for a long time that this movie was going to be gone from YouTube, and I guess that's because of all the heartache that we went through making this movie. I really didn't want that to be for nothing. So I'm quite glad that HD and 4K image video editing and color correction progressed enough to correct some of my foul ups in the making on the technical side of making this. Because as cinematographer, to be very honest, I probably got overconfident in just how low we could get away with exposing the video a lot of times. So you have instances where even here, after the restoration, it can be rather murky in this dark office. But we did manage to fix it for things like this basement scene, which has the interesting distinction of being one of only two actual sets that has ever been built for a Mad Twins movie, the other being the hospital scene that we saw earlier. Because generally speaking, on Mad Twins movies, we always tend to just use existing rooms. But anyway, I digress. Because of my foul up on the exposure side, in combination with me overcopying the movie when I was editing, before it occurred to me to like keep multiple versions of the movie around so that I could just overdub the final soundtrack onto the raw camera footage, basically. This thing really looked like hell for a long time when it was put online. And to even further kick calling me in the nuts on the issue, in 2012 I actually had a restored version on YouTube that was basically the raw camera footage conformed to the product you're seeing right now, and somehow YouTube lost it. So this is, I don't even want to fathom, I want to guess how many generations down the road, but it looks like we managed to clean it up for this 4K version. But it was a minor miracle that we managed to get this salvageable at all. I was actually kind of worried for a long time that this wouldn't be fixable and this would basically be lost to the to the vast majority of indie horror audiences. And we're coming up now on the first time we see the Ghost Woman, played by the lovely Megan Parcham. And this is also a scene that was not fun for her to shoot, and I'm surprised to this day she did not murder me over how little of it actually appears in the final cut, because this fake blood that Megan is sitting in, basically a mix of like Kool-Aid, some kind of flour mixture, I believe, and detergent. Was it detergent or something that Eric and I had whipped together? It was like smelly, freezing, and Megan had to lie in that thing for like an hour and a half. Took her forever to wash all of it out, I might add. And in the final movie, the whole thing appears in like only appears for 30 seconds or something like that. And it has to be said that her experience on this scene really influenced how she appears in the rest of the movie because, as scripted, this character was meant to be bloody throughout. But the ordeal of bloodying Megan the first time around, it convinced me to. I actually did manage to more gently persuade Colin from time to time. I, I was able to more diplomatically convince Colin on that as much as he no doubt wanted a certain amount of blood and gore throughout the picture, in that instance it was just going to be more trouble than it was worth. This is a more mundane example, my cameo here, because at one stage we did have a professional makeup artist involved before it simply became more expense and hassle than we were really inclined to expend. I think I might have done Nick's makeup here myself, by the way. I didn't even say it. Nick Alexander, freaking fantastic actor. We hired him without having ever met him except for a meeting and without any audition. But he just one of the most charming guys I've ever met. And he came to us with like pages and pages of notes of who he figured this killer was and how to approach things. That probably convinced us to hire him more than anything else. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, the eye thing. We realized that having the full prosthetic on before that cameo for like 3 seconds was a lot more trouble than it was worth. So we looked into other ways to do that effect, and it occurred to me that basically all I need to do is just pour fake blood over my face, and we would freeze the image, put into something like MS Paint or Photoshop, and just erase my eyes. So that was a better example of doing things more efficiently on this picture. We're running out of time very quickly here, so there's not much more to really say. This was definitely more of a grueling project than I think any of us expected it to be, but it got Colin's feet wet in terms of expressing himself artistically. This was the only thing that he directed that I was involved in. Not kind of like a very light involvement in another short called "Wait No Longer," but he has since moved on to like documentary production, uh, doing things with home films shot on Super 8 that turned out very beautifully, I must say. And he's also a professional videographer and editor to this day. So he managed to find his voice, which I'm very relieved by. And I'm very glad that I was in my own way able to make things up to him in terms of my behavior on this movie by finally presenting his debut in 4K in the best possible quality. And I was very happy that Colin received this as well as he has. He gave a very glowing approval for this. even though we aren't working together anymore, I'm very glad that I could do one last nice thing for my old friend.